Well, with Udena betting on the prospects of Pampanga following other property giants, will this push up the prices there? And is now really the time to invest? Well, here to talk to us more about that, we have with us live in studio Joey Bondoc. He is the manager at Colliers. Thank you, Joey, for coming on the show. Good morning. Well, I want to first touch upon, what we just rolled there on Udena Corporation. You also had a report earlier that mentioned them in particular as one of the key, best positioned players right now. Why is that?
Well, as we can see, Danie really is aggressive in putting up property development projects across the country. They have projects in Cebu, they have projects in Clark, obviously, and even here in Metro Manila. And they really are have been very aggressive in building not just offices. They are cashing in on the demand for industrial space, for warehouses, for logistics, and they're even acquiring an e-commerce platform. So they've just been very aggressive. They're all over the country, and I think they're just cashing in on the growth of the Philippine economy and of the property sector in general.
Now, Joey, you look at it right now. It's a who's who of who's coming into this particular space. You've got Philinvest, for instance, Philinvest Mimosa Leisure City. You've got SM Clark, Ayala's Alvera, Mega World's Capital Town. The big national players seem to have a strong foothold or a growing foothold here. Where does this leave the local player developers and the local property developers and local players in the Pampanga region? Is there still incentive for these big national players, for instance, to partner with them, or can they actually compete with some of these big boys that are coming in?
Well, they can compete, and at the same time, they can partner with the national developers. For instance, the General Malls Group, which is primarily into retail, has diversified into industrial spaces, and it is building a very large mixed-use industrial space in Pampanga. And what we're seeing is that more and more local developers are tying up with national developers because some players, local players there, they have very large land bank, but they do not have the experience that Mega World or Ayala Land have in terms of developing integrated townships. So what they're doing now is they're trying to tie up with these national players and maximize the properties that they have, and at the same time zero in on the experience and capabilities of national developers to build integrated townships.
Industrial, commercial, residential, all three sectors seem to be seen as relatively optimistic. Where do you see the most upside, though, among these three? Industrials versus commercials versus residential. Where's the most upside at the moment?
Well, currently we're seeing a lot of office space being developed within Clark. Well, not just within Clark, but we're seeing offices being built by Mega World and at the same time Ayala Land. But I think there's really an upside in terms of industrial park development because currently we're not seeing a lot of new supply in the Cavite, Laguna, Batangas area, which, as we all know, is the primary industrial hub of the Philippines. So what developers are doing now, they're going north and central Luzon. So Double Dragon, Ayala, and even Philinvest, they have been very aggressive in developing industrial space to really just capture the demand for warehouses, and the manufacturing and export sector of the Philippines is booming. So they really want to cash in on these opportunities.
One theme, though, Joey, that they've talked about also is moving BPOs into Pampanga because it is being cited as one of the top BPO destinations outside of Metro Manila. It's a growing theme. We mentioned Mega World building a lot of offices there. But there are concerns that the BPO industry here is slowing down. Are there risks to moving or expanding the capacity for potential BPOs to move there and then suddenly see a slowdown, perhaps derail plans to move more BPOs into this particular region?
Well, you have to consider that there are a lot of large BPO companies in Metro Manila, and at some point they will have to expand outside of Metro Manila because they are looking for feasible locations for a support facility. And that's the reason why some BPOs, KPOs even, are transferring to Clark. Clark is primarily a contact center BPO hub, but we're seeing most BPO companies now are scaling up and are now even providing KPO or higher value services. And I think that's the reason why there's just a lack of office supply here in Metro Manila because a 2-3% of vacancy rate in Makati CBD, for instance. There's really no more office space available, and if you are to expand, then Clark definitely is a viable option.
I'm going to go back to your point on Makati and Metro Manila, but my big question here, Joey, is obviously everyone wants to go to Clark right now. Is it still cheap?
Yes, it is. For instance, a rental rate for office would go around 450 to 750 per square meter. In Makati, that would be around 1,000 to 1,700 per square meter. So there's really a big difference. And even with the residential projects, an average of 10 to 20% difference would really be an attractive come on for residential end users and investors who really acquire properties in
But have you
Pampanga.
seen, for instance, that property prices have really shot up in recent months or years leading up to
In
today?
Pampanga? Well, definitely yes. In fact, a number of developers would offer 40 residential lots to investors, but there are 80 individual investors lining up. And that just indicates the amount of demand that is, welcoming or being welcomed in Pampanga. And with that huge demand, it is, of course, natural for prices to go up. But still, there's still a difference between Pampanga prices versus Metro Manila. But do not know, given the surging demand, prices might just catch up easily.
And now going back to your point on Metro Manila vacancy rates, still a lot of offices, even BPOs are still choosing the central business districts. And of course, Clark has been, the government has been pushing for Clark for decentralization for the past 20 years. What is hindering a lot of companies from really just packing up and going there?
Well, as early as 1990s, the national government just saw the potential of Clark. That's the reason why then President Ramos certified Clark as the alternative gateway to NAIA. But what's really lacking for the former military base to become the country's next economic base is the lack of connectivity. And we believe that a lot of policies, a lot of executive ordinances have been issued in the past. But what's really lacking is the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure that will let commuters, businesses to easily go from Metro Manila to Pampanga. And we believe that with the government's push to decentralize and build, projects like Skyway, Stage 3, NLEX, SLEX Connector Road, we believe that these will really help decongest Metro Manila and make Clark a very feasible, viable investment location.
So that was in terms of the business side. Now, I want to focus on your residential side. The report that you mentioned mentions that there are only 2,200 condominium units in Metro Clark. That's less than 3% of Metro Manila.
Yes,
Why are people not wanting to, let's say, live there as residents?
Well, you have to consider that major Kapampangan investors or end users still prefer, larger space. But Kapampangan investors and early nesters, for instance, are being introduced to the concept of condominium living. And we believe that despite only about 2,200 condo units, these are about 90 to 95% sold out already. So given this fast acceptance and fast take-up of condo projects, we believe that more and more developers would eventually be enticed to build more condo projects, especially given the integrated communities being developed by Mega World, Ayala Land, Philinvest. We believe that these office towers and malls will eventually be complemented by condo units that will be completed over the next 3 to 6 years.
Well, definitely keeping an eye on Pampanga there.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for those insights,
Thank you.
Joey
Thank you.
Bondoc from Colliers.